Welcome to Your Biz, Your Rules, the podcast for business-minded go-getters hosted by me, your favourite brain and biz coach, Dara Paddy. This is the spot for those of you ready to blend heart and head, woo and do, income and impact, change and chill, and so much more. So grab yourself a cuppa and let's get started. Welcome to episode 211 of Your Biz, Your Rules. In this week's show, I'm going to be answering a whole bunch of questions that you people have asked me recently, both on Instagram and also in Friends and Faves, my client-only collective. Now, I feel like I want to preface this episode with, I have not prepared here. I have not gone through and outlined how I'm going to answer these questions because I thought it would be kind of fun to just make it a bit more organic. Like, I have the list of questions in front of me and I'm just going to talk through them as if we were having an actual conversation. So let's dive in. Question number 1, how do you decide on your working hours? That's a great question because I think I've been pretty vocal about setting working hours being such a game changer in my business. And what I will say is that they're often determined by calls that I have. Now, I never, ever schedule a call earlier than 10:30 a.m. in the morning. That is the earliest call that I will ever have. So sometimes that's when I will start my workday. I will start at 10:30 with a work call. If I feel particularly motivated or inspired to start work earlier than that, then I will do. But typically 10:30 is when I start my day. And then if I have a call in the evening, now I try not to schedule anything too late on, but if I participate in a program, for example, and I'm not in charge of the schedule, then I will still always try to attend that call. But what it means is that it might have a ripple effect on my day the next day. So if I have a call that is, say, at 8 p.m. at night, then I'm not going to be up at the crack of dawn at my desk. I'm just not. And that's why I quite like this 10:30 starting point, because then even if I do have a later call, I feel like I've had enough time in the morning to just get up, have something to eat, do my morning rituals, my daily glow up, all of that stuff before getting to work. I'm very, very clear now that I want buffer time before and after work so that I can feel like I'm living a life as well as building a business. And when we talk about work hours, I also want to talk about breaks. I also make sure that I have breaks in my day. And this is an imperfect system. I still don't have this down 100%, but I always try to make sure that I have at least a decent lunch break. So at least 1 hour in the middle of the day somewhere where I can just leave the room, so leave my work room and do something else. Sometimes that might be going out, sometimes it might be doing some housework, sometimes it might be reading or watching TV. I don't necessarily have a set itinerary for my downtime. My only rule for myself is that I do it outside of my office. Now, that's sort of my typical work structure. So starting at 10:30, and then I don't like to work more than 5 hours in a day. So 5 is my maximum of productive time. If I work any longer than that, then I notice myself procrastinating, I notice myself getting frustrated, of moving slower, of feeling really tired and irritable. So I try and keep it to about 5 hours. And that can look differently, again, depending on the calls that I have in a day. Sometimes if I have a really intense call, then that's all I want to do that day, because it's just exhausted me. Sometimes I'll have lots of behind the scene things that I'm doing that I can rattle through a reasonably steady pace and that aren't too taxing. So I do allow myself to be somewhat flexible, but the flexibility is governed very much by my energy levels and not by this external pressure of, oh, I have to get this thing done. Question number 2, what is your favorite way to work with people? Oh, I don't know. The thing is, I love variety. I think variety is what keeps me really engaged in my business and really excited about my work. So I wouldn't want to do just one way of working with people and have that be the only way. Because I love having one-on-one clients, and I love working with my one-on-one clients long term too. So for the most part, I'll only work one-on-one with people in 12-month increments, because that really allows me to go deep with them and really support them as they have ups and downs. Because I think often when you have shorter coaching packages, you sort of get this illusion of transformation when you have that first high. So usually about like the 2-3 month mark, you'll have this high in your business and it feels amazing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're done, that you're complete. And more often than not, there'll be a dip, there'll be something else that comes up. And I like to be there for that part so that we can keep working on it and create a more sustained feeling of success. But then I also love working in a group setting. Like Unshakable Business Academy is just something that I adore. I love it, love it, love it, love it. And it's not just because of the work that I get to do, but it's also just seeing the community that has been created. It just fills me with all kinds of joy. Seeing people support each other and be there for each other and connect and collaborate is just the best, because I do my group programs differently to the way that I've seen anybody else do them. In that setting, while yes, I am the coach, I'm the facilitator, I am not at the top of a pyramid. We very much operate in a circle, which means that when somebody is bringing something to the table, when someone is having their hot seat, yes, I will start by giving them my support and my advice and my coachy skills, but I also open the floor up to everybody else in the space to support that person too, because every single woman or man or person that I attract is amazing. They're all highly skilled, they're highly specialized, they come with a whole different layer of experience and knowledge, and they often have something really important and really insightful to add to the conversation. So if I had to pick 2 ways of working with people, it would be one-on-one for 12 months and then inside of Unshakable Business Academy. But then having said that, I do also really enjoy doing little containers here and there, because they just allow my creative brain to play. Like I get to go deep on one particular topic and do one thing for a short amount of time, and that helps keep me inspired. So really not answering the question at all, because I like all the things. What is your favourite snack is question number 3. Well, if you've been following my tumultuous health journey in recent months, you will know that I can no longer have gluten, which has brought many challenges into my snacking life, let me tell you, because things that you don't think contain gluten absolutely do, or they're processed in places that interact with gluten and therefore I can't eat them, which all in all is quite sad. So what is my favourite snack now? What is my favourite snack? I don't know. I'm typically more of a savoury person than a sweet person. I'm a big fan of crisps. But I do have a Ripple looking at me right now. Tom bought me a Ripple before he went to work today because he's a delight. And so I like Ripples, but I also like crisps. But then do you know what? As like a standard snack, because those are like treat snacks, and it's not to say that I'm buying into the diet culture bullshit of good food and bad food, but there are different types of snacks that I eat at different times. So if it's like in the middle of my day, then I'm more likely to eat like fruit and nuts and things like that. One of my favorites is to chop up some Brazil nuts and chop up dried apple and eat those together. They're like a weirdly satisfying combination. But then when it's like evening time, then we're talking the Ripple and the crisps. So do with that what you will. Next question. Do you use any kind of habit tracker? I do. I actually use a couple of different things for a couple of different purposes. So for anything work related, I use my planner. So I did an episode a while back. I want to say that it was episode 203, where I was talking you through the planner hacks that I use to keep my vibe high. I used that planner to track any work-related habits, but then any non-work related habits, so particularly to do with like self-care and energy management and things like that, I use Sarah Steckler's Energy Driver Habit Tracker. I think it's so good. It's done in a Google Sheet, and it allows you to choose your own habits that you want to track, but based on different criteria. So I have some that are more like taking care of my mind, some that are taking care of my energy, some that are taking care of my environment, some that are taking care of my body. And then you can just like track each day which ones you do, and it creates a whole bunch of useful charts and graphs and tables that helps you notice your own patterns. I will pop a link to that in the show notes if you want to check it out. It's really affordable. I think it's like $9, and it's something that I've been using every day this year, and it really has helped me be a lot more intentional about those like energy driving habits, because honestly, when it comes to business things, I'm pretty good at keeping myself on track. When it comes to taking care of myself, less so. Another thing that I do that sort of helps me keep on board with my desired habits is using my weekly check-in form. So this is a template that I created for myself in Notion, and I think it's included in one of my programs. Which one is it? It's definitely in Unshakable Business Academy, and then I think it's also in the Unshakable Goal System. So if you have either of those programs, you will be able to find that template and use it for yourself. But essentially it includes a bunch of different things that I check in with myself over each week, so in terms of like making progress towards my goals and all of that stuff. But then I'll also identify one habit. It's what I call one tweak a week, and that's one habit that I want to focus on over the following week. So this is more if it's like a short-term habit rather than every day for the rest of my life. The Sarah Steckler spreadsheet I would use for my every single day habits, whereas the weekly check-in I would use for more like seasonal habits, because we don't always need the same things, right? Sorry, that was a really rambly answer, but hopefully that's helpful. Next question. How do you make your morning routine a priority? Honestly, this is just a conscious choice I've had to make, and it does take some discipline, if I'm being honest. But the reality is that when I don't make that time for myself in the morning, I don't feel good throughout the rest of the day. And when I don't feel good throughout the rest of the day, I don't do decent work. And when I don't do decent work, I then feel grumpy, I feel less than, I get angry with myself, and I don't see the results I want to have in my business. So honestly, it's worth it for me. Even if I have to do battle with myself for those 2 minutes of like, I don't want to journal, I don't want to do this. Once I just give myself a talking to and whip out my journal or whatever it is that I'm doing, I immediately feel better. And I don't have a really strict system that I have to follow for my morning routine. So you know that I call it my daily glow up, and that is the purpose. It's to help me glow up, it's to help me feel better. And on different days, I need different things. So sometimes it will be journaling, sometimes it will be maybe doing yoga, sometimes it might be reading, sometimes it might be watching YouTube videos. Honestly, it can be whatever I want it to be, but the point is I take those few moments for myself before like giving to my business. How do you get through days where you feel meh? So just like linking back to the previous question, I feel meh a lot less now that I really prioritize my daily glow up. So if you notice a trend of feeling meh, then maybe it is you just need to rethink how you spend the first portion of your day. But then outside of that, I'm really learning to honor my human design. So my human design, my type is a manifester. And what that means is that I get really inspired and really excited when I have a creative urge and when I have a new idea. But sometimes when I'm implementing things and when I'm doing a lot of the work, I lose steam and I lose interest. What is also true for my type is that I often just need to rest and be away from people, be away from anything that needs me. And I fought against that for a long time. I kept telling myself, no, you should be able to show up, you should be able to do this, you should be able to be consistent, blah, 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 blah. But all of those shoulds, not helpful, believe it or not. So what I've really started allowing myself to do is if I do feel meh, I give myself permission to stop. So I will have a bubble bath in the middle of the day. I will take the afternoon off. I will take a couple of hours break. You know, like if I have calls that I need to attend or a client deadline to meet or anything like that, of course, I will make sure that I'm attending those calls, or if I absolutely cannot bring myself to do it, having a conversation with those people as soon as possible. But I'm really trying to lean into what I need, because I want my business to be sustainable. I want to be here 5, 10, 15 years from now. I don't want to burn out, and I don't want to start hating the work that I do. So that means that when I'm not feeling it, when I'm not inspired, when I'm not energetically in the right place, I no longer force myself to power through. Next question. What were the best books you read last year? So you can tell that I asked for your questions at the start of the year, and it's now March that I'm recording this. Let me see if I can remember what I read last year. So last year I read an awful lot of fiction and not really that many personal development or business books. So if you're looking for those types of books, I'm sorry, I don't have anything for you this time. But the best fiction that I read last year, let's think. So I read a great short story collection called Loving Colour by Bolu Babalola. And that is like a collection of mythological retellings from all different cultures, but they're all retold at different time periods throughout history, and also with women of colour as the protagonist, which was just really fun. It was really creative. It was really compelling. I listened to the audiobook of that and it was a really good time. The audiobook was really well done. So I definitely recommend that. Then I also read a book called 7 Days in June. I picked it up because my birthday is the 7th of June, so the title spoke to me. And that is by a lady called Tia Williams, and it's a romance, but it's so much more than that. It's so deep. It touches on so many important issues, and it was just a stunning time. It's about this woman she's an author. So she is an author who writes teenage vampire, sexy books, right? But she wants to be writing something more than that. But because she has a child, she's a single mum, and these books make decent money, she feels like she has to stick with this series. And she also struggles with a chronic illness, and that's depicted in a really honest yet respectful way. So she feels like she can't really let go of this meal ticket, even though she wants to be doing something else. And right at the start of the book, she is speaking on this panel. So it's something like the Black Authors of New York having this panel discussion. And she's on the panel, and this guy walks in, and all of the eyes in the room turn to him because it's this reclusive, very literary author that people very rarely hear from and see from. And she knows him. They know each other. They actually met as teenagers when they had this crazy relationship that lasted for 7 days in June. And it's telling these two parallel stories of the first 7 days in June when they met and they had this initial relationship that obviously was burned down and something really bad happened. And then they have this new 7 days in June where they're sort of rediscovering each other, trying to learn to forgive each other, trying to reconnect and see if there's anything still there, even though they both have had really difficult lives and really difficult challenges to face. And it talks about race, it talks about privilege, it talks about neglect and abuse. It talks about chronic illness. It talks about the power of writing. It talks about healing and mental health. It honestly talks about so many important topics in such an irresistible way. And clearly, I cannot recommend it enough. Another book that I really enjoyed last year was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And this one, again, I listened via audio and it worked really well as an audiobook because it's told like an oral history of a fictional 70s rock band, sort of in the style of Fleetwood Mac. And it tells their story as they create like their version of Rumours. So it's this iconic album that they worked on in like, I think 1974, 1975-ish. And it's telling their story. So it sort of talks you through how the group came to be, but then like the tumultuous time of recording this one hit album that they had. And what I loved about it is that it the narrator is sort of interviewing different members of the band and different people who were involved in the band, and they'll often be talking about the same event, but the way they remember it so very differently gives you such a well-rounded perspective on what took place. And I think it teaches us a lot about our own perceptions, because we can often be so certain about the way that something happened and why it happened and what the other person was thinking, and then the other person involved can have a totally different angle on that. And so it was just really interesting seeing that come to play in the form of a book. And I know that they're turning it into a TV show this year, which I am so excited for. Honestly, it was just stunning. I've recommended it to so many people and most of them cried at it. It was really that good. And then last but not least, I'll give you one more. I also read a book called Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. And this is a chunky one. Like, it's a long book, but it's very, very, very good. And again, it tells parallel stories. So the first is about this elite boarding school for girls in New England. And it's set in like the 1900s, this storyline. And something happens. So there's this secret society of girls who are obsessed with this very risque banned book that this woman wrote. And they call themselves the Plain Bad Heroine Society. And something happens one day and the girls involved end up dead under very mysterious circumstances. And not long after, the school is forced to shut down. So we're getting this first storyline of what happened to the girls, what happened in the aftermath, all of that stuff. Because then the other story is about a bunch of like Hollywood actresses and screenwriters who are coming back to this old school to create to film a horror film based on the story that took place there. But then things start happening on the set that are deeply suspicious. And so you're trying to decide, like, is someone faking it? Is this really a haunted house? Like, what's going on? And very slowly you're given a lot of clarity on what was taking place. But the writing is beautiful. The characters are so well done. There is some like great sapphic representation. And all in all, I highly recommend it. Like I said, it's a long book, but it's very much worth your time. And I can guarantee that I'll be reading it again. In fact, I can guarantee I'll be reading all of the books that I just mentioned again, because really they have entered into the Hall of Fame as firm favourites. Hopefully that will give you some reading inspiration. I'll pop links to all of these books in the show notes, by the way, so that you can easily tap through and take a look for yourself. What do you do when the sneaky voice of doom creeps in to hijack and sabotage you, even though you feel like you're doing the work? That's a great question. And honestly, I could do a whole episode on this topic alone. But let's have a little think about a few things that you can do just to get you started. The first thing that I typically do when that happens is I will reach out to somebody. So I have a few people in my circle that I can just reach out to with a voice note when I'm having one of those moments. One is my delightful VA Danny, who I raved about in last week's show. And then I have a couple of really great friends that I can connect with in that way and just share what's going on. If you're working with a coach, this is exactly what they are there for too. So reach out to them. If they offer you Voxer support like I do, like, take advantage of that. So that's first tip, reach out to someone. If you're not there, if you feel like you can't or you don't really have anyone that feels appropriate to connect with, then the next option would be to journal it out. So open up your journal and just write down everything you're thinking, every doubt, every emotion, whatever it is that is really getting to you, and just keep writing until no more words come. And then you can go through and look at it with a lot more of an objective perspective because it's removed from you. And you can go through it and ask yourself, like, is this actually true? Maybe working through Byron Katie's 4 questions exercise in relation to what you've journaled would be helpful for you. I'll pop a link to the exercise in the show notes so that you can easily refer back to it. But that's something that I often do if, like, connecting with a friend and venting to them doesn't do the trick for me. Another option would be to do some tapping. So again, you can use your journaling here. So everything that you've vented, tap on that. So go through the tapping points, the EFT points, speaking out loud what you've journaled. And then once you're done, keep tapping and talk about what you want to be true instead. So that's another option. And then a fourth option a fourth option would be to find evidence that you're pretty bloody amazing, because I can guarantee that you are. And your inner critic, yes, it's trying to sabotage you, it's trying to get in your way, but you will have evidence that you are great at what you do, whether that is testimonials, whether that is feedback you've received, whether that is evidence of your client's results, whether it's compliments you've been given. I like to keep a little folder filled with screenshots of all of the lovely things that people say about my work, and then on the inside cover of my journal I also write out any compliments I receive, and they can be silly things, they can be deep things, it doesn't really matter, but it makes it very easy for me to then flip back the pages and just read out all of that validation. So that can be another way to just like reaffirm all of the good things about you. So hopefully that's given you somewhere to start, but I would definitely recommend working with a coach if this is something that comes up consistently. So if you regularly notice that you've got a voice within that seems to want to sabotage you, working with a coach one-on-one can really help you shift that for good. Again, hope that helped. If you would like to submit a question for the next Q&A episode, then feel free to shoot me a DM over on Instagram, because that is it for today. Those are all of the questions that were passed my way. Hopefully you've enjoyed hearing my responses, and hopefully you've taken something from this episode. Your action step for this week is to choose one of the great questions that I was asked in this episode and answer it for yourself in your Instagram stories. So maybe you want to talk about your favorite snacks. Maybe you want to talk about your favorite ways to work with people. Maybe you want to talk about the best books you read last year. Just pick one of them and use it to inspire a piece of content. And don't forget to tag me so that I can come leave you some love. Spoiler alert, in next week's show, I am going to be coming your way with a little announcement of something rather exciting, rather different, and definitely free that you can take full advantage of. Now, if that isn't a tease, I don't know what is, but hopefully I will see you there. Thank you for listening to Your Biz, Your Rules. I know that we all like to listen to podcasts, watch videos, read articles or books or posts on Facebook and not really do anything with that information. So I want to challenge you right now. I want to challenge you to take something from this episode, anything, and use it to spark action. Use it to activate some kind of change in the way you work and the way you live. Do yourself this service today. And tell me all about it on Instagram. Hop over, shoot me a DM, or share an Instagram story showcasing what action you are taking thanks to this episode. And of course, do all of the usual things. Subscribe, leave a review, let me know how much you love the show, and I'll be back with you next week.